Welcome. Take a slow breath. Let your mind become quiet. Today we travel back in time. We visit a small laboratory. It is the year 928. The place is London, England. The room is messy. It has old dishes. It has forgotten samples. One of those dishes is dirty. It has mold, but that dirty dish will change the world. It will save more than 100 million lives. Imagine you are a scientist. You work in a hospital. Your name is Alexander. You study bacteria. Bacteria are tiny living things. They can make people sick. You want to find something that kills bacteria. You work every day. You grow bacteria in small glass dishes. You leave them on your desk. Sometimes you forget to clean them. One day, you look at an old dish. You see something strange. There is mold growing on it. The mold is fuzzy and blue-green, but around the mold, the bacteria are gone. They have disappeared. You think, what happened? Did the mold kill the bacteria? This is the true story of Alexander Fleming. Fleming was a doctor and a scientist. He was born in Scotland in 8881. He worked hard in his laboratory. He was not always tidy. He often left his dishes dirty. That is why the mold grew. And that mold was a very special kind. Its name is penicillium. Fleming saw the empty space around the mold. He understood something from the mold had killed the bacteria. He called that something penicillin. Penicillin is a natural substance. It comes from a fungus. A fungus is a living thing like a mushroom or mold. Penicillin can stop some bacteria from growing. It was the first antibiotic. An antibiotic is a medicine that kills bacteria. Fleming did not know it yet, but his dirty dish would change medicine forever. Before penicillin, a small cut could kill you. An infection could end your life. People died from simple sicknesses. Now doctors had a new weapon. But making penicillin was hard. Fleming could not make enough. He gave up. He stopped working on it. 10 years later, two other scientists found Fleming's old notes. Their names were Howard Florey and Ernst Chain. They worked in Oxford, England. They learned how to make penicillin in large amounts. They tested on sick animals. It worked. Then they needed to test it on a human. The first patient was a policeman in Oxford. His name was Albert Alexander. He had a small cut on his face. The cut got infected. The infection spread to his whole body. He was very sick. Doctors thought he would die. The scientists gave him penicillin. At first, he got much better. His fever went down. The infection started to heal. It was a miracle. But they had only a little penicillin. They ran out. The infection came back. Albert Alexander died. This was a sad moment. But it showed that penicillin worked. The scientists knew they needed more. They needed to make penicillin in very large amounts. How could they do that? The answer came from a different country across the ocean. World War II had started. Many soldiers were getting hurt. They needed medicine. The United States joined the war. Scientists in America heard about penicillin. They decided to help. The government asked companies to make penicillin, but making it was very hard. It needed special conditions. The mold needed food and air. It grew best in a liquid. They tried many ways. They used bottles. They used trays. They used milk cans. Nothing worked well enough. Then a woman named Mary Hunt found a new mold. She worked at a laboratory in Peoria, Illinois. She saw a mold growing on a cantaloupe melon in a market. That mold was stronger than Fleming's original mold. It made much more penicillin. From that day, production grew fast. Scientists learned to grow the mold in large tanks. They could make hundreds of pounds of penicillin. By 9944, there was enough for the soldiers. The medicine saved many lives in the war. After the war, penicillin became available for everyone. It was the first miracle drug. It could cure pneumonia. Pneumonia is a serious lung infection. It could treat syphilis. Syphilis is a dangerous disease. It could stop infections from cuts and surgeries. People stopped dying from simple sicknesses. Fleming, Florey, and Chain won the Nobel Prize in 9945. The Nobel Prize is a big award for scientists. Fleming became famous. But he always said the mold found him. He was just lucky. The dirty dish that Fleming left on his desk changed medicine forever. It saved more than 100 million lives. Today, we still use penicillin. It is one of the most important medicines in the world. But there is a problem. Some bacteria have learned to fight penicillin. They became resistant. Resistant means the medicine does not kill them anymore. This is called antibiotic resistance. It is a big challenge for doctors today. Fleming has warned about this. In his Nobel speech, he said, "The time may come when penicillin can be bought by anyone. Then there is danger. The ignorant man may take too little. He may not kill the bacteria. He may teach them to resist. His warning was right. Now we must use antibiotics carefully. We need new medicines. But the story of penicillin shows us something important. A small accident can lead to a big discovery. A dirty dish can save millions of lives. And you, learning English every day, you are like Fleming. You are working. You are making small steps. One day, your effort will open a door. You will understand a new word. You will speak a new sentence. That is your penicillin. Take a breath. The story is almost over, but your journey is just beginning. Write one sentence about what you learned today. Share it in the comments. Choose your answer. A. I learned about penicillin and Alexander Fleming. B. I learned that small accidents can change the world. C. I learned a new English word. Thank you for listening. Remember, every word you learn is a tiny medicine. It heals the distance between you and the world. See you next time. But the story does not end there. After Fleming's discovery, many other scientists worked to make penicillin better. They wanted to make it pure. Pure means clean, without other substances. They wanted to make it strong. Strong means it kills bacteria easily. And they wanted to make it safe. Safe means it does not hurt the patient. The first person to make pure penicillin was a chemist named Norman Heatley. He worked with Florey and Chain in Oxford. He found a way to take the penicillin out of the liquid. He used a special process called freeze drying. Freeze drying means freezing the liquid and then removing the ice. What remained was a yellow powder. That powder was penicillin. But making even a little bit of this powder took a long time. Heatley and his team worked day and night. They used old milk bottles. They filled them with liquid and mold. They waited for the mold to grow. Then they took out the penicillin. It was slow work. Then the war came. The British government asked the United States for help. American scientists visited Oxford. They saw the penicillin powder. They were amazed. They knew this medicine could save soldiers. Back in America, the government started a big project. They called it the Penicillin Project. It was one of the biggest science projects in history. Hundreds of people worked on it. They tried different ways to make more penicillin. The biggest problem was finding the right mold. Fleming's mold was good, but not the best. Scientists searched for stronger molds. They asked people to send them mold from their homes. They looked at old bread. They looked at cheese. They looked at fruit. One day, a woman named Mary Hunt went to the market in Peoria, Illinois. She saw a cantaloupe melon. It had a golden mold on it. She brought it to her laboratory. She tested the mold. It was very good. It made much more penicillin than Fleming's mold. From that melon, scientists grew more mold. They put it in large tanks. The tanks were like giant pots. Each tank could hold thousands of gallons of liquid. They add food for the mold. They added air. The mold grew and made penicillin. By 9944, the United States was making enough penicillin for all the soldiers. It was used in the Day invasion. Day was the big attack on Normandy, France. Soldiers carried penicillin with them. If they got hurt, they could get the medicine. Many lives were saved. After the war, penicillin became a normal medicine. Doctors used it for everything. You could buy it at a pharmacy. A pharmacy is a store that sells medicine. It was cheap. It was easy to use. But soon, something bad happened. Bacteria started to change. They learned to survive the penicillin. This is called antibiotic resistance. Bacteria are living things. They can change over time. Some bacteria have a wall that protects them. Penicillin cannot get through that wall. So the bacteria stay alive. The problem grows worse every year. Many bacteria are now resistant to penicillin. Doctors have to use stronger antibiotics. But those antibiotics are also losing their power. This is a global crisis. Fleming warned about this in 945. He said, the misuse of penicillin will lead to the rise of resistant bacteria. Misuse means using something in the wrong way. For example, taking penicillin when you do not need it, or not finishing your medicine. The bacteria that survive become stronger. Today, scientists are working on new antibiotics, but it is hard. Making a new antibiotic takes many years, and bacteria can become resistant to new drugs too. So we must use antibiotic wisely. The story of penicillin is not only about the past, it is about the present and the future. It teaches us that small discoveries can have huge effects, and it teaches us that we must respect the power of medicine. Think about that lesson again. A small accident, a dirty dish, changed everything. But the change did not happen overnight. It took years of hard work by many people. The mold grew in a forgotten corner. Then later, scientists grew it in huge tanks. The same is true for your English. A small mistake can teach you something big. A single word you learn today can open a door tomorrow. Now let's look at the global effect of penicillin. Global means around the whole world. After World War II, penicillin spread every country. It went to Europe. It went to Asia. It went to Africa. It went to South America. Doctors used it to cure infections. Children lived who would have died. Mothers survived childbirth. Old people recovered from pneumonia. Hospitals became cleaner places. Before penicillin, a simple surgery could lead to a deadly infection. After penicillin, surgery became much safer. Doctors could operate on the heart, the brain, and the bones. They knew that if an infection started, they had a medicine to stop it. But soon the bacteria began to fight back. In the 1950s, scientists found some bacteria that penicillin could not kill. These bacteria had changed. They had learned to break down the penicillin. They made an enzyme. An enzyme is a protein that can destroy other things. This enzyme cut the penicillin into pieces. The pieces could not hurt the bacteria. So the bacteria survived. They reproduced. Reproduce means to make more of them. These resistant bacteria spread from person to person. Soon, there were many more resistant bacteria in the world. Doctors needed new antibiotics. They found them. They made methicillin. They made tetracycline. They made streptomycin. Each new drug worked for a while. Then the bacteria learned to resist that one too. It became a race between science and bacteria. Today, the situation is serious. The World Health Organization says that antibiotic resistance is one of the biggest threats to global health. Every year, millions of people get infections that are hard to treat. Some infections have no treatment at all. Why does this happen? One reason is that people use antibiotics too much. When you have a cold virus, antibiotics do not work. But some people take them anyway. This kills the weak bacteria but leaves the strong ones. The strong ones multiply. Another reason is that people do not finish their medicine. They take antibiotic for 2 days. They feel better. They stop. But some bacteria are still alive. Those bacteria learn to resist. Then the next time, the medicine does not work. So what can we do? We must use antibiotic only when our doctor says we need them. We must take all the medicine, even if we feel better. We must wash our hands to prevent infections. And we must support scientists who are making new drugs. Now back to Fleming. He was a quiet man. He did not want fame. He liked to work in his laboratory. He liked to watch things grow. He once said, "One sometimes finds what one is not looking for." That is how he found penicillin. He was not looking for it. He was just looking at a dirty dish. This is a lesson for English learners too. Sometimes you learn a new word by accident. You read something. You hear a song. You see a sign. The word stays in your head. Later you use it. That is like the mold in the dish. You did not plan it, but it grew into something useful. So do not worry if your English is not perfect. Do not worry if you make mistakes. Fleming made a mistake by leaving his dish dirty. That mistake led to a miracle. Your mistakes can lead to learning. Let us go on with the story. The next part will take us back to the laboratory. We will see how scientists tested penicillin on animals. That part is coming soon. For now, take a deep breath. Sink in means to be fully understood and remembered. Let us go back to Oxford, England, in the year 1940. The war was growing. Bombs fell on the city. Scientists worked in a small old building. They had little money. They had little equipment. But they had a dream. They wanted to prove that penicillin could save lives. The first step was to test penicillin on animals. Howard Florey and his team took 50 mice. Mice are small animals with long tails. They infected all 50 mice with a deadly bacteria. The bacteria was Streptococcus. Streptococcus causes sore throats and serious infections. Then they divided the mice into 2 groups. The first group of 25 mice received penicillin. The second group of 25 mice received nothing. This was the control group. A control group helps scientists see the difference. The scientists watched the mice for 1 day. The next morning they looked at the cages. All 25 mice in the second group were dead. But in the first group, all 25 mice were alive. They were eating and moving normally. The experiment worked. Penicillin saved the mice. This was the first time that penicillin had cured a living animal with an infection. The scientists were very excited. They knew they had something powerful. But mice are small. Would penicillin work on a human? They needed to test it on a person. But they had very little penicillin. It took months to make a tiny amount. They made the penicillin in ceramic pots. Ceramic is a hard material made from clay. They even used old bedpans. A bedpan is a container that sick people use in bed. They sterilized the bedpans. They grew the mold inside them. Finally, they had enough penicillin to treat one person. That person, Albert Alexander, a policeman in Oxford. He had a small cut on his face. The cut got infected. The infection spread to his eye, his scalp, and his lungs. He was dying. The doctors gave him penicillin. At first, he got much better. His fever went away. The swelling went down. He started to eat again. It was a miracle. But then the penicillin ran out. They had no more. The infection returned. Albert Alexander died. This was very sad, but it taught the scientists an important lesson. They needed to make much more penicillin. The war was getting worse. Soldiers needed this medicine. Florey and Chain knew they could not make enough in England. The country was too poor. The war used all the resources. So they went to the United States for help. The Americans had big factories. They could make penicillin in large amounts. The journey to America was dangerous. Florey and Chain flew across the Atlantic Ocean. They carried a small box. Inside the box was a frozen sample of the penicillium mold. They protected it like gold. When they arrived in the United States, they met with government scientists. They showed them the mold. They explained how it worked. The Americans were impressed. They decided to help. That is how the big penicillin project started. The next part of the story will take us to Peoria, Illinois. There, the search for the best mold began. But for now, let the story rest. A small box of mold crossed the ocean. It carried a miracle inside. Florey and Chain arrived in the United States. They carried the precious mold in a small box. They went to Peoria, Illinois. Peoria is a city. It is in the middle of the country. There was a middle of the country. There was a big laboratory there. It was called the Northern Regional Research Laboratory. The scientists in Peoria were experts in growing molds. They knew how to feed them. They knew how to keep them healthy. They worked with Florey and Chain. Together, they tried to make more penicillin. At first, they tried to grow the mold on the surface of a liquid. The mold sat on top. It looked like a thin green carpet. But this way was slow. Each bottle made only a little penicillin. Then a scientist named Andrew Moyer had an idea. He said, "Let us grow the mold deep inside the liquid. Let us stir it. Let us push air into it." This is called deep tank fermentation. Fermentation means growing tiny living things in liquids to make something useful. They built a big tank. It was like a giant metal pot. They filled it with liquid. They put the mold inside. They stirred it all the time. They pumped in air. The mold grew fast. It made much more penicillin. But they still needed a better mold. Fleming's mold was good, but they wanted a stronger one. A stronger mold would make more penicillin. So the scientists started a search. They asked people to send them mold. They tested mold from bread. They tested mold from fruit. They tested mold from old food. They tested hundreds of samples. Then one day, a lab assistant named Mary Hunt went to the market. She saw a cantaloupe melon. A cantaloupe is a round, sweet fruit. It has orange flesh and a rough skin. On this cantaloupe, there was a golden brown mold. It looked different from the others. Mary Hunt brought the cantaloupe back to the lab. She put the mold in a dish. She tested it. The mold grew fast. It made a lot of penicillin. It was 200 times stronger than Fleming's original mold. They named this mold Penicillium chrysogonum. Chrysogonum means makes gold. The scientists were very happy. Now they had the perfect mold. They took the mold and put it in the big tanks. The tanks were huge. Each one could hold thousands of gallons of liquid. The mold grew in the liquid. Workers added ingredients. Corn steep liquor was one ingredient. Corn steep liquor is a liquid from making cornstarch. The mold loved it. Production grew very fast. In 9943, the whole world made only a few pounds of penicillin. In 9944, the United States made thousands of pounds. In 9945, they made millions of pounds. The medicine went to the soldiers. On D-Day, June 6, 9944, soldiers carried penicillin in their bags. If they got wounded, a nurse gave them the medicine. Many soldiers survived because of it. After the war, penicillin was available for everyone. It was cheap. It was easy to use. It saved millions of lives. A dirty dish in a messy lab had changed the world. But even as penicillin saved lives, a shadow was growing. Bacteria were learning to fight back. In hospitals, doctors saw some infections that penicillin could not cure. The bacteria had changed. They had become resistant. Fleming knew this would happen. He said it in his Nobel speech in 1945. He warned people not to use penicillin for small problems. He said that if you use too little, the bacteria learn to survive. Now, many years later, his warning is real. Resistant bacteria are everywhere. They cause infections that are hard to treat. Some are impossible to treat. Scientists are working on new medicines, but bacteria always find a way. The story of penicillin is not over. It continues in every hospital, every laboratory, every pharmacy. And it teaches us something about learning English too. Small steps lead to big results. One word each day becomes a sentence. One sentence becomes a story. One story becomes a new world. Now you know the full story of penicillin. You know that a dirty dish saved 100 million lives. You know that Alexander Fleming was not looking for a miracle. He was just looking at his work, and he found something that changed history. Think about that the next time you make a mistake. Think about that the next time you feel lost in English. Your small accident can become your breakthrough. Your dirty dish can become your penicillin. Now let us think about the bigger picture. Penicillin did not just cure infections. It changed how people lived. Before penicillin, a simple cut could kill you. A sore throat could turn in a deadly fever. A baby could die from an infection. But after penicillin, these things became less dangerous. People lived longer. The average life went up. It went from about 60 years to more than 70 years. Children grew up healthy. Mothers survived childbirth. Old people recovered from pneumonia. Hospitals also changed. Before penicillin, surgery was very risky. A small infection could kill a patient. Doctors were afraid to open the body. But with penicillin, they could operate safely. They could fix broken bones. They could remove tumors. They could repair the heart. Dentists also used penicillin. Before, an infected tooth could spread bacteria to the whole body. People died from tooth infections. After penicillin, dentists could save teeth and lives. The medicine also helped farmers. Farmers gave penicillin to sick animals. Cows, pigs, and chickens got better. This made more food for people, but there was a dark side. People started using penicillin too much. They took it for colds. Colds are caused by viruses. Penicillin does not kill viruses, but people took it anyway. This was a mistake. Bacteria that were weak died, but strong bacteria survived. They learned to resist the penicillin. They passed this power to their children. Soon there were many resistant bacteria. Today, some bacteria are called superbugs. Superbugs are bacteria that no medicine can kill. They are very dangerous. Doctors have few options. Scientists are trying to make new antibiotics. But it is slow. It takes many years. And bacteria learn fast. They are always one step ahead. Fleming warned about this in 1945. He said, "The public will demand penicillin. They will take it for every small illness. Then the bacteria will become resistant." He was right. So what can we do? We must use antibiotic carefully. Only take them when a doctor says so. Finish the whole bottle. Do not share medicine with others. We must also wash our hands often. This stops bacteria from spreading. We must keep our environment clean. We must support research for new drugs. The story of penicillin is a story of hope and warning. Hope because a small discovery saved millions. Warning because we use that discovery wisely. Now let us connect this to your English learning. You are on a journey. Every day, you learn new words. You practice sentences. Sometimes it feels slow. Sometimes you make mistakes. But each mistake is like Fleming's dirty dish. It can teach you something. It can show you a new path. The mold grew because Fleming did not clean his dish. Your English grows because you do not give up. Think about the word resistant. Resistant means something does not change. Some bacteria are resistant to medicine. But you are not resistant to learning. You are open. You are growing. Think about the word discovery. Discovery means finding something new. Fleming discovered penicillin. You are discovering English. Each new word is a small discovery. Think about the word cure. Cure means to make something better. Penicillin cures infections. English can cure the distance between you and the world. It helps you speak with new people. It helps you read new books. It helps you see new places. You are not just learning a language. You are opening doors. You are finding new parts of yourself. Now we come to the final part. In the next section, we will wrap up the story. We will look at Fleming's legacy. We will look at your legacy too. What will you discover? What will you cure? Take a breath. The story is almost over, but your journey will continue. Alexander Fleming died in 1955. He was 73 years old. The world remembered him as a hero. His discovery saved millions. But he never forgot the lesson of the dirty dish. He always said that nature gave us the mold. He just happened to see it. After his death, his laboratory became a museum. People visit it today. They see the small room. They see the old dishes. They see the place where the mold first grew. The room is kept messy. It shows how a simple mistake changed the world. Fleming's story teaches us something important. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to have a big plan. You just need to pay attention. Look at your world. Ask questions. Try things. Sometimes the best discoveries come from accidents. Now think about your own life. You are learning English. That is a big task. Some days it is hard. Some days you feel lost, but keep going. Every word you learn is like a small mold. It grows. It becomes stronger. One day it will help you do something big. What will that help? Maybe you will talk to a new friend. Maybe you will read a book. Maybe you will get a better job. Maybe you will travel to a new country. English will open the door. The story of penicillin is a story of patience. Fleming waited. He kept working. He did not give up. Fleury and Chain also waited. They worked for years. They made small progress, then big progress, finally success. Your English journey is the same. You will not learn everything in one day. You will not speak like a native in a week, but you will improve. Each day you add a little. After months, you will see change. After years, you will be fluent, so do not be afraid of mistakes. Your dirty dish is your classroom. Your wrong answers are your mold. They teach you. They help you grow. Now I want to ask you a question. You will answer in the comments. Choose one. A. I want to learn about another scientist. I want to practice English by writing about penicillin. C. I want to tell my own story of a small success. Please write your answer. Share a sentence about what you learned today. I will read your comments. I will be happy to hear from you. Thank you for listening to this story. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope it helped you learn new words. I hope it helped you understand history in a new way. The dirty dish saved 100 million lives. Your small effort every day can change your life. Take a breath. Feel proud of yours. You finished another lesson. You are one step closer to your goal. See you next time. We will have another story, another discovery, another chance to learn. Until then, keep going, keep growing. Remember, the mold found Fleming. Your English will find you. Goodbye.